the moment it hits her. At first, she doesn't feel the weight of it. The world around her seems unchanged, her daily routine continues, and she tells herself that this was the right decision. After all, breakups happen all the time, and people move on, don't they? But the truth is, the realization of loss doesn't come all at once. It creeps in slowly, quietly, like a shadow stretching across her days. In the beginning, she might even feel relieved, thinking she's handling it well. She convinces herself that it was mutual, that it was for the best. Yet, as time passes, something shifts. One morning, she wakes up and instinctively reaches for her phone, expecting a message that isn't there. She goes about her day, only to catch herself thinking of you in the little moments. Hearing a song you both loved, coming across an inside joke only you two would understand. These reminders, once insignificant, now hold weight. The absence starts to settle in, creating an emptiness she didn't anticipate. And then, one day, it finally hits her: you're really gone. That's the moment everything changes. The breakup wasn't just an event, it became a permanent shift in her life. She realizes that the comfort of having you around, of knowing you were just a text away, is no longer an option. This is where the emotional journey truly begins. It's not just about losing a relationship, it's about losing a presence, a part of her daily existence. And as that reality sinks in, she is forced to confront the very thing she tried to avoid: the truth that she might have let go of something she wasn't ready to lose. The first signs: breadcrumbs and indirect reaches. She won't show regret immediately. In fact, she might seem fine, too fine. She'll carry on with her life as if nothing happened, posting pictures, hanging out with friends, and maybe even appearing happier than ever. But beneath that surface, something is shifting. The loss hasn't fully settled yet, but she feels the absence growing, like an empty seat in a familiar room. And when that feeling becomes too strong to ignore, she starts reaching out, but not in the way you might expect. Instead of sending a heartfelt message admitting she misses you, she starts leaving breadcrumbs, small, subtle signs that she's thinking about you. Maybe she likes an old photo of you on social media, one from months or even years ago. It's not an accident. She knows you'll see it, and she hopes it sparks something in you. Or she might send a casual text, something vague and unassuming. "Hey, saw something today that reminded me of you." It's not a direct "I miss you," but it's just enough to see if you'll take the bait. Then there are the more indirect reaches: commenting on a mutual friend's post that she knows you'll notice, or casually asking people in your circle how you're doing. She's not ready to fully admit her feelings, but she wants to feel connected to you in some way, even if it's from a distance. Psychologically, this behavior is a defense mechanism. It's easier to test the waters than to dive in headfirst. No one wants to appear desperate, especially after a breakup. Lisa, a friend of mine, once told me how she handled her own regrets after letting go of someone she still cared about. "I didn't want to admit I was wrong," she confessed, "so instead of saying anything directly, I'd like his posts or comment on mutual friends' pictures, hoping he'd notice. It was my way of reaching out without actually reaching out." These signs may seem insignificant, but they're anything but random. Every small action is deliberate, a way of testing whether there's still a connection, still a possibility. The real question is, do you acknowledge these signals, or do you let them fade into the background? Sometimes, silence speaks louder than words. The testing the waters phase. When her breadcrumbs go unnoticed or don't get the response she hoped for, she realizes she needs to take a different approach. The indirect hints, the social media interactions, the casual likes, they weren't enough. So, she gathers the courage to take a step further, but she does it carefully. She won't risk exposing too much of her emotions right away. Instead, she plays it safe with neutral questions. It starts with something casual, something that can't be misinterpreted as her missing you. "Hey, how's work?" Or "I was just wondering how your mom's doing." These messages seem innocent, like simple check-ins, but they're loaded with meaning. She's trying to gauge where you stand. Are you cold and distant? Are you friendly? Do you ignore her completely? Each response, or lack thereof, tells her something about where you are emotionally. This hesitation, this careful approach, comes from a deep-rooted psychological concept called loss aversion. Studies show that people fear losing something more than they value gaining something new. For her, reaching out directly and getting rejected would be devastating. That's why she plays it safe, testing the waters before deciding whether she should go any deeper. She doesn't want to look vulnerable, but at the same time, she can't just let go without at least trying. And here's where the real dilemma begins. How do you respond? If you answer, even casually, it might encourage her to continue reaching out. If you ignore her, it sends a clear message that the past is the past. The choice isn't just about her feelings, it's about what you want for yourself. Do you let her back into your world, even if just for a conversation? Or do you allow the silence to create the final boundary between you? It's a tough decision, and it's one that many people face after a breakup. So here's a question for you. If your ex reached out today, what would you do? The realization of absence, when fear sets in. At first, she convinces herself that this silence is temporary. She assumes you just need time, that eventually, you'll reach out. Maybe you're just trying to prove a point, or maybe you're waiting for her to make the first move. In her mind, this breakup isn't final, it's just a pause. But then, the days turn into weeks, and the weeks stretch into months. And that's when reality finally starts to sink in. You're really gone. This absence creates a heavy emotional weight, what some call emotional gravity. When someone has been a big part of your life, their absence doesn't just feel like an empty space, it feels like something is actively pulling at you, reminding you of what's missing. And for her, this weight becomes undeniable. She starts reflecting on everything, questioning everything. Did I take him for granted? Did I push away someone irreplaceable? These thoughts don't come all at once. They creep in, slowly filling the quiet moments she used to spend with you. There's a psychological reason for this shift. Over time, the human brain rewires memories, often making the past seem better than it was. It smooths over the rough edges, making her forget the arguments, the incompatibilities, and the reasons you broke up in the first place. Instead, she starts fixating on the good, your kindness, your patience, the way you made her feel safe. Nostalgia has a way of amplifying what was beautiful while blurring out what was painful. And then comes the fear. What if I threw away something I'll never get back? This is the moment she realizes that the connection you shared wasn't something easily replaced. Maybe she thought she'd move on quickly, that she'd find someone new and forget. But instead, she's left wondering if she made a mistake. She starts scrolling through old pictures, rereading old messages, desperately trying to hold onto something that's already slipping away. The real turning point is when she finally understands the harshest truth. She no longer has access to you the way she used to. She can't just text you whenever she feels like it. She can't call you at the end of a rough day. She can't expect you to be there like you always were. And that realization? That's what truly scares her. Because for the first time, she sees the breakup not as a temporary setback, but as something real, something permanent. The what-if phase, nostalgia and regret. At this stage, nostalgia takes full control. The past, which once seemed ordinary, now feels golden in her mind. The human brain has a way of distorting memories, highlighting the good while quietly erasing the bad. Suddenly, the fights and misunderstandings don't seem as significant as they once did. Instead, she remembers the inside jokes, the way you used to text her good morning, and the comfort of knowing you were always just a message away. She replays those moments in her head like a favorite movie, longing to step back into a time when things felt simple and safe. More than anything, she remembers the security you provided. Maybe it wasn't perfect, but it was familiar. There was a rhythm to your relationship, a steady presence she could rely on. And now, in the silence that follows your absence, she realizes just how much she took that for granted. She finds herself scrolling through old messages, revisiting pictures, and rereading conversations that once seemed so routine but now feel priceless. The little things she used to overlook now haunt her, making her question everything. This is when the what-ifs start to creep in. What if I had tried harder? What if I had been more patient, more understanding? What if I had communicated better? What if I had chosen love over my ego? These thoughts loop endlessly, pushing her deeper into regret. She wonders if one small change could have rewritten your story, if there was a single moment where she could have done something differently and kept you in her life. She now faces an internal battle. Should she reach out, or is it too late? The temptation is strong. She wants to hear your voice, to find out if you miss her the way she misses you. But there's also fear. Fear of rejection, fear that you've moved on, fear that reaching out will only reopen old wounds. And so she hesitates, trapped between the urge to fix things and the reality that some things, once broken, can't be put back together. The hardest truth she has to confront is this: second chances are often just an illusion. People chase closure, not because they need answers, but because they want relief from their guilt. But deep down she knows, no amount of overthinking will change what's already done. The past is written, and now, she must decide whether to keep chasing it or finally let it go. The crossroads. Should she try again? Now, she finds herself standing at a crossroads. The weight of regret, nostalgia, and lingering feelings push her toward a decision. Should she try to reconnect, or is it better to let go? The answer isn't simple, and her mind constantly shifts between possibilities. On one hand, she wonders if the breakup was just a misunderstanding, something that could have been worked through with better communication. If the issues were caused by external factors, stress, bad timing, or miscommunication, then maybe, just maybe, there's a chance to make things right. She thinks of couples who have broken up, only to find their way back to each other. She recalls stories of people who realized, after time apart, that they were meant to be. Perhaps this is just a temporary separation, a test that will eventually lead back to love. She fantasizes about sending that one message, the one that could open the door to reconciliation. Maybe all it takes is a simple "hey" to start the conversation again. But then, reality sinks in. What if the breakup wasn't just about stress or misunderstandings? What if the deeper issues, lack of trust, emotional immaturity, or fundamental differences, are still there? Getting back together wouldn't erase those problems, it would only delay the inevitable. She begins to fear that reaching out will only reopen wounds rather than heal them. There's a reason relationships end, and while the loneliness makes her want to go back, she questions if it would truly be worth it. What if he has moved on? What if she's only seeking comfort, rather than love? She replays the past, trying to convince herself that things could be different this time. But deep down, she knows that people don't change overnight. If they were incompatible before, what guarantees that things will be better now? This internal battle consumes her. One moment, she's ready to type out a message. The next, she convinces herself to stay silent. The uncertainty is paralyzing. She's afraid of rejection, afraid of silence, afraid of the possibility that he has already healed while she is still stuck in the past. And then, the question turns to him. If she reaches out, what will he do? Will he welcome the conversation, or will he see it as a step backward? The decision isn't just hers. He, too, has the power to decide whether to engage or to keep moving forward. She hesitates, knowing that once she chooses a path, there's no turning back. The hardest part, seeing you move on. Nothing makes the loss feel more real than the moment she realizes you've moved on. At first, she may have comforted herself with the thought that you're struggling just as much as she is. Maybe she believed that, like her, you still replay the past, wondering if things could have been different. But then, reality delivers its harshest blow. She sees you happy without her. Maybe she stumbles upon a photo of you smiling, surrounded by friends, looking lighter, freer. Or perhaps she hears from mutual friends that you're doing great, that you've been going out, pursuing new opportunities, and living your best life. And then, there's the moment she dreads most, seeing you with someone new. That image alone feels like a knife twisting in her chest. It's not just jealousy, it's the final confirmation that she's no longer a part of your story. This moment is devastating because until now, she might have clung to the idea that there was still a door open, a chance for reconciliation. But seeing you genuinely happy, thriving without her, destroys that illusion. It forces her to confront the painful truth. She is replaceable in your life, even if she once thought she was irreplaceable. Psychologically, this moment triggers something deep within, the fear of being replaced. Studies show that people often fear being replaced more than they fear loneliness itself. It's not just about losing love, It's about the realization that someone else can now give you what she once did. This thought alone can send her into an emotional spiral, making her question everything. Did he ever really love me? Was I not enough? How could he move on so easily? But the hardest part isn't just knowing you've moved on, it's knowing she can't go back in time. No matter how much she wishes she had done things differently, no matter how much she regrets taking you for granted, the past is set in stone. She realizes that while she was busy reminiscing, life kept moving forward. And now, she has no choice but to do the same, even if it hurts. The final stage: growth or bitterness. At this point, she stands at a crossroads, faced with two very different paths. One leads to growth, self-reflection, and emotional maturity. The other spirals into bitterness, resentment, and an inability to move forward. Which path she takes depends entirely on how she processes the loss. If she chooses growth, she begins to see the breakup not just as an ending but as a lesson. She reflects on what went wrong, not just what you did, but what she could have done differently. Maybe she realizes she didn't communicate her feelings properly, or that she took your presence for granted. She starts working on herself, learning from the mistakes, and becoming a better version of who she was. This doesn't mean she's free of pain, but she acknowledges it, learns from it, and slowly begins to heal. She accepts that some things aren't meant to last and focuses on building a future instead of clinging to the past. But not everyone takes this route. Some people get stuck in an emotional loop, replaying the breakup over and over, asking themselves, why did I let this happen? Instead of using the pain as a catalyst for growth, they dwell in it. They become resentful, blaming you for moving on, blaming themselves for their mistakes, and sometimes even blaming life for being unfair. This bitterness seeps into future relationships, making it hard for them to trust or open up again. Mark Manson, in The Subtle Art of Not Giving a FCK*, explains that people often chase closure not because they need resolution, but because they want relief from guilt. If she still seeks validation from you, if she constantly wonders whether she made a mistake or if she was enough, she hasn't truly moved on. True closure doesn't come from an ex, it comes from within. So how can you tell if she's really moved on? The biggest sign is emotional neutrality. If she can think about the past without feeling anger, regret, or longing, she's at peace with it. If she still holds on to resentment or keeps finding reasons to check in on you, she's still stuck. In the end, how she processes this loss will shape her future relationships. If she learns from the experience, she will approach love with more wisdom and emotional depth. If she allows bitterness to consume her, she risks carrying that pain into her next relationship, repeating old patterns instead of breaking them. The breakup may have been inevitable, but what she does with it, that part is entirely up to her. Conclusion: your power to decide. One day, out of the blue, your phone might light up with a message, "I've been thinking about you." It could be weeks, months, or even years after the breakup, but when it happens, a flood of emotions will come rushing in. The nostalgia, the memories, the questions. Does she regret it? Does she want to fix things? But before you even consider responding, ask yourself, is this about her feelings, or about your future? Breakups don't just separate two people, they create two different paths. Maybe you've used this time to heal, to grow, to build a life that no longer revolves around the past. Or maybe you've been secretly waiting, hoping she would realize what she lost. Either way, this moment forces you to make a decision. Think of it like a bridge. It connects two sides, but crossing it means leaving something behind. If you walk back toward her, are you sacrificing the growth you've made? Are you stepping into an old cycle that might repeat itself? Or are you truly rekindling something worth saving? On the other hand, if you choose to keep moving forward, are you doing so out of clarity or out of pride? At the end of the day, the past has a way of pulling people back when they least expect it. But the real question is, do you still belong there? What would you do if this happened to you? Would you give it another shot, or let the past stay in the past? Let's talk in the comments.